Hate crimes against Muslims in Canada increased by 253% between 2012 and 2015, according to a new report from Statistics Canada. In 2012, just 45 hate crimes against Muslims were reported by police. By 2015, the number shot up to 159. According to the report, these hate crimes in Canada were increased due to incidents targeting certain religious and ethno-cultural groups, specifically the Muslim population and Arab and West Asians. While many have focused on the growing Islamophobia in Canada's southern neighbor, the United States, particularly under the administration of President Donald Trump, Canadian Muslims are pointing out that their country has its own problems to deal with. Media narrative have focused more on the religious aspect and also this sort of American political thing. Chell by Mary Deagle, the editor-in-chief Muslims of Link, an Ottawa community newspaper, told the Global News. If we actually take a closer look, when you realize this has been happening since 2012, this is very home ground. This is not something we can put on the United States. It has to do with our own political rhetoric. Islamophobia has been a big political issue in Canada this year. In March, the Canadian government overwhelmingly passed a motion calling on the government to condemn Islamophobia and all forms of systematic racism and religious discrimination. The motion, which was introduced by liberal Muslim lawmaker Iqra Khalid, also calls on the government to study and better document hate crimes in Canada. The action by Canadians' parliament unleashed a torrent of anti-Muslim hatred. Khalid reportedly received 50,000 emails about the motion, many of which she said were direct threats. Commentator Sabrina Ghaffar Siddiqui wrote in the National Observer.
Let me read you some of the messages I have received. No need to debate her. Simply remind her that she is merely a woman and she needs to sit the blank down and shut the blank up. She has to comply according to Sharia. Kill her and be done with it. I agree. She is here to kill us. She is sick and she needs to be deported. Real Canadians will rise up and get rid of the nasty, blank, muzzy stench in Ottawa. They should all go the blank back to your blank hole where you belong. We will burn down your mosques, Draperhead Muslim. You're a disgusting piece of trash, and you are definitely not wanted here by the majority of actual Canadians. Blank off Pakistani, Talibani. You blank yourself and go back to your blank hole of a country where you blank come from, ugly.
Given the alarming rise in attacks against Muslims, it appears that Muslims are being singled out. Hate crimes have decreased overall, yet hate crimes against the Muslims community have doubled. 1 in 4 Muslim reports having encountered difficult crossing borders, and Muslim youth are the least optimistic about the next generation facing less discrimination than them. Vice Canada published a story on the rise of US-style paramilitary anti-Muslim groups in the Canadian province of Alberta. Mac Lomax, who infiltrated the group, writes, anti-Muslim sentiments in the beating heart of Alberta. This worldwide unites the group online and has been assuredly the driving force of recruitment. In the closed group, posts have been made about wiping out all Muslims off the earth, and there is frequent use of dehumanizing terms like goat to describe the religious group. Another post by a member referring to a debunked story about Syrian youth in a Red Deer high school indicated that they should round up Syrian children like animals.
Please see a white doctor.
It's only available after 4 if you're not.
So you're saying in the whole entire building there isn't one white doctor?
Your kid has to be seen by a pediatrician.
Okay, so you're telling me that my kid has chest pains, he's going to have to sit here until 4 o'clock. Can I see a doctor, please, that's white? That doesn't have brown teeth or speaks English. Huh?
If the doctor is black,
okay, let's don't get started with this.
The next blow to any rose-tinted images of Canada as a multicultural ideal came via a video of a racist rant by a mother at a clinic in Toronto calling for a white doctor for her child. In the video, already watched more than 100,000 times on YouTube, she repeatedly asked to see a doctor who does not have brown teeth and speaks English. In the most recent anti-Muslim hate crimes, a woman who came to visit her family in Manitoba this summer was shocked by the racist verbal attack. In an exchange captured on video, a man who described himself as Nazi told Calgary teacher Fatma Kanis to take her head towel off because it supports Muslims. He also told her to go back to your country.
You are being racist.
Yeah, no shit I am.
You are being racist.
I'm a fucking Nazi, bitch.
You are being racist.
I'm a Nazi.
You are being racist.
You know what a Nazi
You
is?
shouldn't do that to me.
Fuck you too.
You shouldn't do that to me.
Take your head towel off in this country then.
Yeah, why should I take it off?
Take it off.
Why should I take it
It
off?
supports
I
Muslims.
can race any way I want.
It supports Muslims.
It doesn't matter. This is my country.
Then go back to your
This is my
country.
country.
No sir.
Yes. Excuse me. You are being racist.
The bitter reality of Islamophobia in Canada became all too real in January of this year when a white supremacist terrorist attacked a mosque in Quebec during prayer time. Some worshippers were left dead following the attack and 19 were wounded. Alexander, the 27-year-old terrorist, was arrested and charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 5 attempts murder. In response to the senseless violence, Canada's Prime Minister Justice Trudeau called it an act of terror committed against Canada and against all Canadians. Thousands of Canadians, including Trudeau, attended a public funeral for 3 of the victims, showing the world that solidarity with Muslims looks like. Our country was united. Trudeau said this at the funeral. It is an entire country that is joining the families of the victims. Together we will rise from this darkness stronger, more unified than ever before.
Ce pays, notre pays.
In these dark times, this country, our country, united and proudly showed that its solidarity and strength is unshakable in spite of the atrocities it has so unjustly suffered.
On the other hand, the Canadian media have been criticized for their role in perpetuating Islamophobia. Canadian professor of journalism asserts that in the post-9/11 era, an Islamic peril has replaced the Soviet threat of the Cold War years in Canada. After comparing Canadian mainstream media coverage of religious minorities and communities in Canada, a research concludes that the Canadian media commonly apply the frames of dehumanization, extremism, fanaticism, inequality, and Islamophobia to Muslims. The media stereotypes of Muslims, Arabs, and Middle Easterns are terrorists, savages, a fifth column. These stereotypes are then set to fuel suspicion of Muslims in general, which then results in hate crimes against them. Nevertheless, another scholar argues that Canadian media is more balanced and objective in its coverage of Muslims than that of UK, USA, and Australia. She cited many cases of terrorism where the suspects were at the fringe of the Muslim community, and Canadian media gave coverage to Muslim leaders, allowing them to present a more peaceful side of Islam, unlike the media in the United States and Australia. In the light of growing racism and Islamophobic hate crimes in Canada, as well as in the United States and UK, it's high time Canadian politicians and Muslims step up to the plate and commit concrete resources to fighting violence against Muslims in Canada.